Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm your boy Retro Bliss, and you are on the Retro Bliss Rewind podcast. And I did the intro this week. Anyway, we're going to have an interesting show tonight. We're going to talk about Arcade1up cabinets. These are 3/4 scale arcade cabinets, and they have been all the rage for the last couple of years. And so without further delay, let's just bring on the panel Mike from Mike's Gaming Gala and Brian from BD Retro Mods. What's going on, fellas?
Hey,
I'm good. How are you?
Real good. Before hold on, I got something to do here real quick. I meant to get this taken care of and I didn't do it. I got something to put on the stage. Our buddy Brian is going to be at the Cleveland Gaming Classic. What are the dates, Brian, for that? Do you remember? It's going to be in the fall, right?
yeah, it's September 20th. Because I say you're caught me off guard here. September 20th, September 20th through the 22nd.
I didn't tell him because I was afraid he'd say no. Brian has been asked to. He is a guest panelist, speaker. He's a guest of the whole deal. They asked him to be there, and so that's a high honor for these gaming conventions. Not everybody gets to be asked to be at these things, and so our own Brian. Congratulations,
thank you.
bro.
You know, it was a great opportunity, and again, just talking with the showrunner owner of it, Tom, who's a great guy, just kind of came up with a real cool idea with it, and probably more information will be forthcoming. But with that, the plan is to kind of have a BD Retro Mods experience there. So it's going to be numerous free play machines there that are showing off my different controllers, including some prototypes and some special things that I'm making just for this experience. So I think it's going to be awesome.
Retro Mods experience.
Yeah, so I think it's good. I think it's going to be a real good time, and I'm really excited to see how this works out. And like I said, they don't have like panels around any thing like that figured out yet, so I'm not sure exactly what's all going to go there, but it's just really cool to have the opportunity to do this, and I appreciate them for giving me that. So.
Well, I had to put that up there because we don't just have any Tom, Dick, or Harry on this show. You know, we got Mike from Mike's Gaming Gala, who was YouTuber of the Year last year. Now we got Brian from BD Retro Mods, who gets asked to these things. You know, I have to buy tickets to go. They go retro who?
I should probably give a plug too to the Pinball Expo.
Yeah.
I will be a speaking guest there in October.
Yeah,
in Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was going to say
I'm
not the only guest in the show here tonight. So
yeah.
I am looking forward to the Retro Bliss experience one day.
Well, good luck with. Okay. Anyway, congratulations, Brian, on that.
Yeah,
so we're talking about Arcade1ups tonight, and boy, this is a conversation that we could talk about for more than an hour, and our podcast goes only for about an hour, and we are not going to go nearly that long. And in doing so,
now hold up though, because we say that, and then it ends up.
Yeah, we've done an hour and a half before.
Well, I want to stick to the script because that's the problem. We've got to stick to our scripts. So anyway, first of all, I do want to show you guys something. I did have something I wanted to show you here on my. This is in the Bliss Cave. I have this is one wall. I have 6 Arcade1ups. There's a Final Fight, a Tempest, Arcade1up, a Mortal Kombat, a Street Fighter 2, a Simpsons cab, and a NFL Blitz cab. And then I've got, hold on a second, let me bring it up here. A Pac-Mania cab.
It's lonely.
It is
all the other
lonely.
ones have friends.
Yeah. Well, that's because that's the only place else I had to put. The Bliss Cave's getting a little tight. So anyway, I wanted to kind of show that to you guys that I do know a little bit about them. We're going to talk about modding these, and I have soft modded my Simpsons cabinet. So we're going to talk about that, but we're also going to talk about hard mods, and I've done some research and looked into that, and so has Brian. So we're going to talk about that. But let's just talk about the Arcade1up, the history a little bit, and then we're just going to kind of go from there. So the Arcade1up company was established as a subsidiary to Tastemakers in 2018 by Scott Bachrach. And so anyway, let me kind of, I forgot to do something here. Okay, so anyway, they opted to craft these at 3/4 scale to make them mendable to fit into most homes or businesses. So the cabinets were prepared as ready-to-assemble kits for consumers to complete complete at home, providing pre-cut fiberboard frame components for the cabinet sides, including stickers for the game marquees, a 17-inch LCD screen, controller panel, and emulation hardware and power componentry to run the games. And then they sought licenses from the different companies so that they could put the games. They initially started with Namco, Midway, and Atari, and then kind of moved from there. I think they started with like Pac-Man, and then of course with Atari, you know, they had Centipede, Millipede, Missile Command, Crystal Castles, and things like that. And so later on, they made cabinets. They made a number of cabinets, a lot of different cabinets, and I'm not going to go into all of them at the moment, but I'm going to mention one right now. It's the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cabinets, but I can also mention the Simpsons cabinet. If you know anything about that, they are 4-player games. Well, at 3/4 scale cabinets, if you guys have all the control, if you try to put 4 controllers on that one little deck right there, there's no way that 4 people could ever play on that one little deck. So
4 kids could, but we're big guys. There's no way we're doing it.
I could barely fit on the one deck. So anyway, they came up with a way to extend the deck for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the Simpsons. They also did this with NBA Jam, I believe. And as time progressed and they started making new cabinets, they also integrated Wi-Fi connections. And they also integrated where some of the games could be played over Wi-Fi with other players. And so then the company decided to branch out and make what's called countercades, which were little bar or tabletop units with either 2 or 5 games, you know, something like that. There were other sit-down table cabinets for like head-to-head games. You know, Brian, he has a Pong type thing that is a sit-down type situation. He'll talk about that in a minute. And so, anyway, and then they actually had a light gun game in Big Buck Hunter. So, and then they did one with wheel controls, which was Outrun. So, you know, it wasn't just buttons and joysticks that they were trying to branch out a little bit. And so, one thing that helped them in their rise to sales was COVID. When COVID hit, sales took off because people couldn't get out of their homes. And so, long story short, by the start of 2022, they had sold over 3 million units. And so later on, they decided that they were going to branch out into full-size cabinets, which they have a few now. And these replicas now have 19-inch screens. which I don't have the games for those. I don't know which ones have the 19-inch screens. But I went to look for an exhaustive list of all of the cabinets that they have made, and I could not find an exhaustive list. And every time I did find a list, I knew it wasn't exhaustive because there were cabinets on that list that were not listed on that list. And so we'll go over this list maybe as we move on, as we talk. But suffice it to say that in counting just the ones that I researched in the brief time that I looked into it, there were 66. That is a lot. That's a lot of different.
Some Jedi about to die.
Yeah.
Order 66. Anybody?
It's also of note, to give you an example. I have a Mortal 2 or Mortal 2. I can't talk. Mortal Kombat 2 Arcade1up cabinet, but it has, let me see, I don't know how many, I can't count. So, but it has Mortal Kombat, Mortal Kombat 2, Mortal Kombat 3, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, Defender, Joust, Paperboy, Rampage, Gauntlet, Wizard of War, Bubbles, Tubin, Clax, and Root Beer Tapper. But there's a Defender machine, there's a Joust machine, and a Rampage machine. And most of those same machines have the exact same games on them. They have a different skin.
It's a pick your skin kind of deal.
But I have noticed that if you have a Rampage machine, it will have 3 controllers on the control deck instead of 4. I mean, instead of 2. There being a difference, which I did not realize that at the time, but the games are the same. And that goes for a lot of other games, like the Pac-Mania that I showed you. It has Pac-Man, Galaga, Galaxian, Pac-Man Plus, Super Pac-Man, Pac-Land, Pac-and-Pow, Pac-Mania, Galaga 88, Rompers, Rolling Thunder, Mappy, Dig Dug, and Dig Dug 2. But
that's a good combo on that one.
It is. But the regular Pac-Man has the same one. There's a Super Pac-Man machine that has the same one. And there's a Galaga Deluxe Edition, I believe. I have to look at that.
And I think that's a good point to get to. Is just right, and that like the name, yeah. So Stupid Fat Hobbit says about the 32 34, which that was a point I was going to get to, and I think that's where I think it's kind of a good segue because when the Arcade1up stuff first happened, obviously people were excited because again, building your own arcade cabinet is not cheap, and with that, I mean, those were coming out, I believe, at like $3.99. I think were like the starting price.
The initial price it said on Wikipedia was like $250, but they actually went up quite a bit once they started getting really popular.
Yeah. Like I said, I think the first cabinets were around that $300 to $399 mark, depending on which cabinet it was. So, but again, I feel like that was kind of at a good price point. But then I think what you started to see occur after, as they were expanding, again, where you can start to then maybe get buyer's remorse is, to your point, like, okay, I just bought this cabinet because it was the first one that came out with just Pac-Man, and these other games in it. And I think the original ones only had like 4 games, 6 games.
The first Pac-Man only came with Pac-Man and Pac-Man Plus. That was it.
Yeah. So then here you go.
That's sparse.
Yeah.
And then here you go. And hey, here's another version. That's just a reskin. And we added some more games to it. And then of course, then they were having to raise the price of them. And again, I have nothing against the Arcade1up cabinets because I think someone mentioned it in the chat earlier. It's like, it does scratch an itch for some people. And, but I think as time has progressed, I think some of the issues we've seen with these cabinets, is something, that I think we have to highlight, and just, make sure people understand that, hey, when you're paying that normal retail price, is it worth that investment, today? You know, because again, when they first came out, that was about all you had, and people were excited because it was at a popular price point. And again, COVID made people want to have stuff to do at home, and it was just a cool thing. And as it grew, I think we just ran into, you know, they ran into some other things that that again we'll talk about here in a bit. But I don't fault anyone for them. And like I said, I have one myself. I have the Pong, I guess you call bar / cocktail table Pong unit. And again, I got it, you know, at a highly discounted price, and for what I paid for it, I'm happy with it. But
Yeah.
if I would have paid the full original retail price of it, which I believe was $5.99 or $4.99, I would have a whole different opinion with it. So,
Well, you know, when I have family over, they love it. But you know, when they're not there, it's just me and the wife. And I actually got the Pac-Mania cabinet because of her, because she loves Pac-Man. Well, I put the thing together. She's not even been down there to play it with me. So whenever I go down to the Bliss Cave, it's just me. So, you know, it's like I can only be on one of these things at a time. And I have, and you guys, if you're a regular viewer of this channel, which by the way, if you guys are watching from Mike's Gaming Gala, welcome. We are simulcasting over there. So anyway, I have what's called an Atari dual fight stick with trackball, which is a killer controller. And it's hooked up to a Raspberry Pi, and I've got 16,000 games with all of the MAME games and whatnot. And it is sick. And I really don't. The only game that I can't play that's on my Arcade1up is NFL Blitz. Everything else is on my dual fight stick with trackball.
And so, this comment here is probably a good segue too.
Yeah, because again, I think that's something that we've come to learn with these, right? Is that, you know, again, everyone was real excited at this price points, and I'm glad Hobbit, you know, kind of corrected there, because now you're right. I do remember that they were $250, but then it was extra if you got the like bar stool seat and the riser to it. So, and then you're right, they did eventually start jumping those up because people wanted more features with it, because some of those things that you had as an initial issue, and I know they kind of came back and resolved it, but by not having like an acrylic part on the arcade cabinet, because if you would go to Walmart, you'd see it plain as day. I mean, that stuff was getting wore off pretty quickly around the joysticks. Really quick.
And stuff. I have never seen, like I do not own an Arcade1up cabinet. I don't own an arcade of any type. But I really want, especially when the Star Wars skinned one came out, I really wanted that. But every single Arcade1up cabinet that I've ever seen that was outside of the box at a retailer was either broken or worn or chipped away, and that really made me question the durability and the quality of them.
Well, one good thing about the Arcade1ups are the ability to mod those, and we will talk about that later. And there are different ways to mod those. But anyway, now, I have 7 of them, and would I recommend getting one now? Honestly, if you have the room for one, and you have the ability to, I would say consider getting one in really good shape and consider modding it. And we're going to talk about that. But I don't know how. Now, first of all, I'm going to let you know, disclaimer here. This is not a how-to. We're not telling you how to mod here. And if you try to mod in any way based on what's on you, and you mess up your Arcade1up, that's on you. That's right. Don't say we made you do it. But there are what's called soft mods and hard mods. Soft mods are where you'll need micro SD card, a USB keyboard, a USB mouse, and you will have to download games from the internet, and then you will have to be able to not only change the software that's on the board of the Arcade1up that you're modding, you're going to have to understand the instructions completely of how to do that to the letter. If you don't, it is easy to screw it up. And if you screw it up, you may or may not be able to get it back to factory. And so if you let's say you forget a step, and you go through the reboot process, which you may have to do in one of the steps, and you try to turn it back on, you may find out when you turn it back on, it may not boot. it just may not. So
and really at this point, like Chris Walker's saying, if you've got MAME and a low-end Pentium,
that's a good option. That is a really good option. If you have that already and you have an operating system on there and you have a hard drive on there already and you have speakers for that PC already and the power supply and all that, man, all you need is hold on, I forget what you call it. I
like
wrote
a tank stick or something.
Hold on a minute. No. I actually wrote it down. You need what's called an HDMI LCD controller board to mod the screen, and you'll need a 12-volt audio amp. But I'll show those pictures here in a minute. But
I think that's kind of an important thing, and that we, and again, because we've talked, we're not bashing on the Arcade1up stuff, and that's something I think just to make clear is that
I have no problem. Like, I know people who have them and love them,
right?
And that's great.
And the thing is, like, here's where I think they are a positive thing, and some of the chats kind of hit some of those points too. Is that if you don't feel you have the skill set to build your own and add your own computer or Raspberry Pi, whatever the medium is going to be inside the cabinet, these are a good alternative. And with that, in addition, if you want that full arcade cabinet type experience at a lower cost, because again, if you don't know how to do that stuff and you try to outsource that and buy that, it can get expensive very quickly. And then again, for those that really want to, have a true like arcade down in their basement, like with multiple cabinets and stuff, this is a good way to do it. Because again, as we've talked about consoles and stuff, you try to get original arcade cabinets. One, they're a lot heavier, and you got to have some technical knowledge to be able to keep those working well, because again, they're old machines, and just like consoles. And I think there is a market for this for people that want that, because as my one friend from Tech Buzz Gaming, I mean, his whole basement is turned into like an 80s, early 90s arcade, and where he has dozens of these Arcade1ups, and just the carpet looks like an old 80s 90s arcade and everything. I mean, it's really cool looking, and I think for those that want that experience, I think it's an option for folks. But if you do have some technical know-how, I don't know that you'll be as happy with an Arcade1up, especially if you're paying it at regular price, because again, if you find them on sale, around that 200, 300 mark, or secondhand, because you'll notice, because of like what Phil said, you had a lot of people buy these originally. And I think then some folks realized, oh, I'm not playing this as much as I thought I would. And now it's taking up space. I kind of need it out of my house, and you can kind of pick it up secondhand for a lot less than that too.
Yeah.
that I just like, if you get it at those lower price points, I don't think they're terrible. Personally, I can't justify them at their full retail rate. And it's partly because when you look at the track record of the quality of the parts, if it's used very regularly, they seem to break. And I mean, I'm not saying every single part's absolutely horrible on it, but there is definitely wear and tear there on, that happens on those like joysticks and buttons, and when you get into like the special things like the Star Wars yoke stick and Terminator light guns, those type of things have just
and I
go ahead.
Sorry, I'd also like to add that when you buy an Arcade1up cabinet, you legally own those games. That is a big part of it, and a big part of the cost of purchasing that is paying for the licensing for the Star Wars cabinet or the Mortal Kombat or the Namco, which is Bandai now. But and so that is a big difference. I know for a lot of retro gamers, that doesn't matter. You can be like Mr. Baseman and have 1,300 games on your barcade, but those are pirated. I mean, that is something that should be mentioned. Whereas the Arcade1up cabinets are completely licensed, which is why you're always gonna spend more for a product like that. So that is a part of it.
And again, and that argument's with anything when it comes to retro gaming, right? I mean, at the end of the day, people say that too when it comes to getting original consoles and buying the original cartridges and stuff. Well, why not just have it on a, Raspberry Pi or a computer, or emulate, it's in my warehouse.
Yes.
I just saw that.
But again, like I said, I don't fault it. I just think that it's had some quality control issues over the years that hasn't helped the brand. I also think a lot of their reskinning isn't helping the cause either, because I think when you go to their website now and try to look at their quote unquote new products, it's really rehashes of stuff that's already been done before. And it's just now they finally raised it higher, so you don't need the riser underneath it, or they've had a couple extra inch screen added to it and so forth. And so again, I think those are things that have people kind of sour with it. But again, there is a market for it.
Yep.
Well, I know when I decided to try a soft mod, the Simpsons cabinet was the one I wanted to do it on, because it was
if you failed, you could just say no.
Yeah, no, it had the most potential, and there were actually more soft mods available for that at the time. So long story short, I had success and I had some failure with it. I was able to add some games. I added Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, Sunset Riders, Punk Shot, Vendetta, The Main Event, Metamorphic Force, Mystic Warriors, Wild West, Cowboys of Moo Mesa, Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, Captain Commando, and Knights of the Round, on top of the 2 Simpsons games that were with it, right? So I'm thinking, this is awesome. I have all of these games on this one cabinet. But the problem was that there were instructions that I did not do correctly on the navigation to get to them. Now, I could still do it, but I had to do them through the operating system of the because it's an Android box.
Okay.
It's an Android box, so I had to do it through the
Android. Like the root OS.
Yeah. And so I had family over, and I said, all right, guys, here's the deal. You guys want, and they're like, I want to play Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. Okay, great. Here's the deal. When you're done playing that, if you want to play something else, no problem. Let me know, because I have to change the game. Because if not, it could screw it up. they didn't listen to me. And so they screwed it up. And I'm like, you know what? And I was able to fix it, but I was scared to death that one of these days that I would not be able to fix it. So I ended up putting it back to factory, and I decided not to soft mod my Simpsons cabinet again. Now, it was me not being able to follow instructions. Now, there are some really cool soft mods for the Simpsons cabinet. You can actually put RetroArch on that thing if you know what you're doing. There's a guy on Facebook called, or not Facebook, YouTube called Technically Not a Technician. He's got a ton of mods for the Simpsons cabinet. I'm not telling you to go there and to do them. I'm not recommending that. But that's where I got my information from. But it can be tough, and the information can be daunting. If I ever mod another cabinet again, which I plan on doing, it will be a hard mod. Now, I'm probably going to use a Raspberry Pi, though. So, now, I'm not going to spend a lot of money doing it. I'm going to use probably one of my older cabs. And then, I think with everything, it's going to cost me maybe about $150 in parts to do it. Now, it's not going to be San Juan buttons and all that, but even the cheapest buttons that you get from Amazon are better than the buttons that come on the Arcade1ups. I'm telling you that right now. The Arcade1up buttons that are on there are crap. They are not good at all. I even did a video.
And I think it depends on the model too. I mean, because like I said,
the ones I have are all bad.
Are they?
Yeah, they're just not good at all. Yeah, but I mean, the games can be playable, but they just don't have that snapback. You know what I mean? They just don't pop back like they should.
Squishy buttons.
Yeah. So, you know, a Pac-Man game, you don't need a button, right? You know, Mappy, you don't need a button, right? It just depends on the game that you're playing.
Right. And like Hobbit said, yeah, it was kind of reaffirming what we were saying. It's like what you said is the exact reason why the Arcade1ups are good for what they are, right? Because again, you deal with those old cabinets. I mean, you're going to have problems, and they weigh a ton trying to get them in a basement and vice versa, and to get parts for them, which you can still do. But again, you got to have that technical know-how to maintain them. And again, I think that's like what you're talking about there is the market this is for. Folks that want to easily kind of build an arcade experience in their basement or wherever in their house. Like I said, if it's something where you just want kind of one arcade cabinet with a bunch of games, I don't know that an Arcade1up is for you, because by the time you buy one, get the parts, the mod it, and so forth,
it's about the same price anyway.
Right. So, but again, I truly think it's for those that really want that quote unquote authentic, because again, that's being used very loosely, authentic, you know, arcade feel of the original. So,
yeah. Should we talk about hard mods?
Yeah, we can talk about hard mods.
Phil muted himself.
Yeah, you're muted.
I did mute myself. I was coughing, and I'm over here. I'm going, and you hear what I was saying. I do have some pictures of the back of the Arcade1up during a hard mod. Hold on, let me get to that point. All right, let me share the screen now.
This is the back. Baby got back.
Yeah. Okay, hold on a minute. I make sure I got my ducks in a row and I know what I'm talking about here, which is doesn't happen too often. Okay. These here, this is the HDMI LCD controller board, okay? there's the PCB board. You have to take off of it's screwed into the back of the screen, and you have to actually take that off if you're going to either use a PC or a Raspberry Pi, and you're going to need an HDMI LCD controller board, and you're going to need audio, and so if you need audio, you're going to need an amp, and so this amp right here. This particular one you can get on Amazon for about $17. They're not that expensive.
Wow.
And this right here, the LCD, I believe the HDMI LCD controller board is about $28. This part right here is about $28. Underneath right here is the Raspberry Pi. This particular build has a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus. Like I said, if you're only playing Street Fighter style games or below, arcade style games, really that's all you need. And you could go on eBay and get a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus for around $35. And get a case with a power supply for and all the heat sink and everything else, probably for another $25. So once you do that and you get a power supply to plug it all into, you're all in for less than $150 on the mod.
And if you've got a table saw and a little bit of skill, you can build a cabinet around it. You don't need any 1-up stuff.
Yeah, well, then you would need a screen
Right.
too. Well, you would need a screen too. That's the
Oh,
hard
yeah,
part.
okay.
No,
That's the thing.
You hop on Facebook Marketplace, buy an old TV. You don't even need the controller board. Just plug the HDMI right into it.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, but I will say though, there's also, because again, a lot of these parts are used in actual arcade cabinets for replacing things. So I mean, you can get 4x3 panels, for screens. If you're building your own.
In this particular case, we're using the stock speaker. We're just plugging the two leads off the speaker right into the amp. But you don't have to do that. If you have your own speakers, you can use different speakers. But this is just, in this particular build, we're just using the speakers. This isn't my build. But these buttons are not. These are just cheap buttons from Amazon, with and not very great quality. But they're a lot better quality than what you would get from the Arcade1up. And these encoders come with it. It's all like a kit. And this kit, I think, is around $45 with all the buttons and the encoders and the sticks.
And are those like quality sticks? Sticks for me are the most important.
They're better than what come on the Arcade1up.
Okay.
That's my point. They're not San Juan anything, but they're better than what you will get if you buy a stock Arcade1up. You can spend the money for better stuff, but what I'm saying is if you're going to go on the cheap and use an Arcade1up cabinet, this is what I'll probably end up doing. So, but that's just me. So let me get
Brian, you had some cool links with stuff to show us too, I know.
Yeah, yep. I'm just finishing up here, just getting. Yep. So let me share my screen here. Because I said, as Phil said, as long as they're a Sanwa style, type for connections, I mean, you can easily swap out your joysticks, your buttons. You can add, get LED buttons if you want to, and get them powered up and stuff. But again, like Phil said, I mean, the parts that are on the Arcade1up, like I said, they've really, depending on some models, they've gotten a little better, but the general consensus is that the parts themselves are not great, and especially if you're using it pretty hard and and heavy on the unit, like if you're not being delicate and stuff. So but again, I'm going to show some things. I'm not saying like this is where you go, things like that. It's just these are just some other things to consider when going to upgrade your Arcade1up. So let me share my screen here. And we're going to go into Infinity here, I think, in a second.
Okay.
Yep. You see
Yep. I see it. I'm waiting for you to change the window so that.
Oh, gotcha. Yep. Go for it.
There we go.
Okay. Yeah. So, one thing I highly recommend, and again, those who are really in the Arcade1up stuff are already aware of this, but if you go to Thunderstick Studios, T-Sticks, which Glenn from Glenn's Retro Shows, a part of, they make a number of great products that can be used to upgrade your Arcade1up or use for other do-it-yourself arcade cabinet builds. And some of the ones I'll highlight, I'm not going to go through everything, but like I said, the arcade spinner, because again, like a lot of the like I said, this one won't work on the Legacy Tempest, but again, a lot of complaints about the spinners on the Arcade1ups, and this is a great substitution for that.
And because spinners, like people who play spinner games, it has to be dialed in. It has to be perfect. You can't cheap out on a spinner.
Correct. Exactly. Same with a trackball. Same concept.
Yep.
And again, they have trackballs as well. But like, I know Phil mentioned about like Amazon to get parts. Again, the company that kind of makes the parts for T-Sticks, they make real good quality stuff. And again, they have the kits available for arcade buttons that you can go with, and joysticks as well. And again, I know the brand because I use that brand a lot myself. And good stuff overall. You'll be happy with because again, I'm going to probably pronounce it wrong, but Valian.
Now, do they come with the restrictors, different restrictors for the joysticks? Do they come with 8-way and 4-way?
So it's a 4 or 8-way, like on this particular. But again, you can easily buy like you can buy different restrictor gates, and put on it. As long as as long as the restrictor gate's compatible.
So they're
with
universal
the
then.
Style. Yep. Well, for a Son, if it's like a Sanwa style joystick, you can, it's a universal for the most part with the restrictors. But also, you can replace your flight yoke, because again, if you're kind of
that
rough
makes
on
me happy.
I mean, if you're rough on the one that's in the Star Wars cabinet, again, I've heard a lot of complaints about that one breaking a lot. So, you got the Tron sticks. They also had the spinner for the Tron cabinet. And again, these can be used outside of Arcade1up as well. But as you can see here, though, apparently this newest version of it is not working with the Arcade1up cabinet. So used to be a good option there, but at least until they get it figured out, that's something to be aware of.
I'm very sorry, Brian, because we're in this layout. This is going to cover you up, but this is a really good comment that we were meant talking about in the green screen.
Oh, okay.
Or in the green room. So he's basically saying once you pay for all these extra parts to upgrade your thing, you are basically paying what you would for a custom cabinet, or at least close.
Right. And we'll and we'll kind of show that there. And again, these are all great products. And again, if you're building your own cabinet, I can't stress enough. T-Sticks has good stuff, and like I said, the company behind them, like I said, which I believe it's pronounced Valian, they make really good arcade parts. And again, you look at so again, those are, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself now. So those are kind of some options, and again, ton of other different things you can look at there. Some of them will work with Arcade1up. Some of it's just more for your homemade cabinet. But then the other thing of mods is obviously again, this isn't endorsing this site, but this is just to show that things are available. So there are mods out there to where, you can, get kits that have like what Phil showed with the power.
It comes with everything. See, it has
comes with everything.
the amp for the speakers and the Raspberry Pi and all of it.
Right, and comes with the new, panel top with the joysticks and stuff, and again, just other options. So again, you can change your panels on the Arcade1up. You can do screen upgrades. You can get custom made different ones there with different layouts. So there's a ton of options if you want to upgrade your cabinet. But again, they're not cheap either, which comes back to what Mike said. It's just, these are out there, but by the time you buy an Arcade1up cabinet, you start buying some of these mods. And again, I think, if you're not doing full, complete swap outs of stuff, you can definitely piece this out yourself for cheaper than even what this site shows, if you're just wanting to add a Raspberry Pi and stuff. But then the other thing, which is kind of neat, but again, you got to see if it's worth your while, is Intech Gaming makes some mods for the Arcade1up. So they actually have, again, the panel top that can get swapped out, and it has a slot in it to ultimately turn your Arcade1up into a Sega Genesis arcade cabinet or an NES arcade cabinet. And I'm not sure how practical it is, but apparently they have one now that's even for like your Nintendo Switch. So like I said, this one here's the Genesis version. And again, there's different overlays you can put on it. Again, reviews have been good on this. Videos I've seen of people reviewing these products have been happy with it for the most part. But again, is that worth the price, to upgrade that, to just turn your, Arcade1up cabinet into that's for you to decide. But again, this is the NES version, which again, they got a bunch of different overlays as well. It's not giving me a good example. So again, it has different ones, and 12 of them, so you can choose what you want for the new overlay there. But again, that's the NES version, and then they have the Nintendo Switch version. And but again, if I come back here, and again, I'm not promoting this site, just to kind of give an example. So this site also sells their own cabinets that already have a bunch of games, loaded on a Raspberry Pi in it to play. And you can see what those starting prices are. So like this middle series is very similar to an Arcade1up, and again, these prices all, change depending on the size and everything you get. But again, when you start looking at this, to reiterate, by the time you get an Arcade1up and you start getting these hardware mods, is it just better to start from scratch and get something else, at the price point? And again, that's for you to decide there. But another one I kind of like, because I actually got to play one at Cleveland Gaming Classic last year and actually really liked it. And I think it's not a bad price, is if you're just looking for just one cabinet, like you really don't want to do the build your own, and you don't want to really mod anything, and you just want to have like one cabinet somewhere. I found the At Games Legends Ultimate cabinet to actually be pretty good. Like I wasn't upset with the controls. Like I didn't think they were bad.
They're better quality.
Yeah,
they are better quality. I don't know how much better, but they are better.
Right, and again, it has a bunch. Now again, some of the games are junk on it, but it does,
which is always going to happen. You're going to get a few ones that you really want and a whole pile of crap you didn't really care.
Right.
It has USB on top, and I think you can add games to that fairly easily.
Yeah, that I'm not sure, because I didn't look into it.
I'm not sure about that games,
yeah,
but I
but
think
again,
so.
but again, the price point, I think it was, like, again, if you're just looking for one simple cabinet, I mean, this is something to consider, because again, it has a bunch of games already preloaded and a number of good ones, like from Atari, like arcade classics from Atari, Data East, Taito, so forth. So again, just different options out there, but those were kind of some of the hard mods, and just kind of also show other comparable options beyond just Arcade1up.
Those are beautiful too, because if you looked at the control board on that, it has the trackball in the middle, but it has spinners on each side, and the buttons and the joysticks for each controller or for each player. So I thought that was really sweet. Something that I was thinking about while Brian was talking, I've seen ad after ad after ad for these Arcade1ups on Facebook Marketplace, and a lot of these people, they don't understand what they have. And I saw one the other day, and this one lady, she had their full-size arcade. And I'm like, I felt like, lady, that's not full size. What are you talking about? These people do not know what they have.
Size. To a short person, it's full size. It feels big. So. But Mike Hawk Hertz here has a really good point that we did kind of mention earlier.
Right. Picking
these up secondhand and upgrading them absolutely has value. Absolutely has value. Mr. Postile is obviously an iArcade guy. I'm actually pretty jealous of some of the stuff that he's shown on his channel for sure. And Ted here also has a great point. Quite frankly, at the end of the day, if it makes you happy and it doesn't stop you from paying your bills, go nuts.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly. Well, because again, some people don't. Again, we're not saying go one way or another. It's just we're kind of showing here's what's options are available. And again, some people, because again, I like to tinker myself, obviously. And I mean, it could be just a fun project, regardless of what it costs to do it. It just might be fun one day to tinker with an Arcade1up and do a bunch of modding to it to show, hey, look at everything I did to make this a better unit. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. It's just really just wanted to try to show, and I think that's just what we wanted to do tonight with this episode, to say, like, these aren't terrible. I think there's a specific market for these, but just be aware there's also other options within it, depending on what you want to do and what your comfort levels are with it. And go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. No, finish your comment.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, because I'm catching up on chat now, because when I was cycling through my windows, I couldn't see the chat. So, but yeah, Dr. Volk,
yes, that's the comment I wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, that's why, like I said, I had zero expectations going into that arcade cat. Like when they had them on, because At Games was there, as a sponsor, and they had set up with multiple Legend Ultimate cabinets, and I had zero expectations, knowing how At Games stuff is on other stuff. And
their Genesis emulation is god awful. They do make some okay products, but anything that they do that's a Sega product, just run.
Right. But yeah, no, I'm very happy. I mean, I was very happy with what it is for the price point. For what is all there. I didn't think it was a bad option for someone who wants that, because again, it's bigger than the Arcade1up, and I like all the parts and everything just felt better with it.
There was something that I meant to do prior to the stream, and I had it before I rebooted, but I went on eBay, and I told you I had a list of Arcade1up cabinets, right? And obviously I couldn't bring them all up. But I have this one, and I'm going to bring it over to this screen over here, and then I'm going to share the same screen again. A Burger Time Arcade1up cabinet. This is what it's listing for on eBay.
Oh, nope.
And that's not unusual. That's not unusual because they're rare.
Well, I was going to say, I think the issue is
still a nope.
Because again, and again, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, we all have our hobbies that we want to collect for, and for some, if they want to try to quote unquote make a full Arcade1up set, I mean, that's an out of print machine. So
I will be honest, I have paid good money for bad Atari games.
Yeah, well, me too. But if you look at this,
I've got that collection of sealed ones. If you remember our
Well, if you look at it, obviously it's one of the earlier models, and it has 4 controllers on that small deck that we were talking about. I don't know how 4 people could ever play. Now, obviously, you don't have. There's no. Well, there is an action button because you have to pepper, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There are pepper buttons, so it's like, boy, that would be tough. That would be tough. And there are, let's see, Karate Champ, uh, Caveman Ninja, Bad Dudes, and I can't read the other game.
No, that's just the Data East logo.
Oh, okay. So those are the games that came on it.
Yeah.
But it's out of it's yeah. I mean, you can't get this bad boy.
Well, yeah, you can. You just need $1,000.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, if you can't, if you were to ever find that for $150 somewhere, you'd be stupid not to get it if nothing else to resell it.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Postal is saying that's so rare because it was originally a mail order only.
Oh, see, well, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised. Never mind. Thanks for not banning that.
But yeah, so
I got the post.
Yeah, so yeah.
Finally, some good information.
But yeah, I mean, again,
Thanks, Poe.
Yeah, my opinion, Marvel, on that comment is yes. I truly believe you should replace the joystick and buttons. I think you'll have a better experience with it. And if you're already building the cabinet, I mean, if you buy the parts prior to that, I mean, it's not going to really take you any extra time to do that. So again, I recommend, T-Sticks there as a good option. Again, I know there's other brands like on Amazon that people have been happy with. And I think if you're buying one fresh out of the box, there's no reason not to put the little extra investment in to have better joysticks, because I just think it's and buttons, because I just think it's overall a better experience for you.
And Phil, it's a 2-player cabinet. Karate Champ requires 2 sticks per player.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So
several people in the chat pointed that out.
Oh, I see. Okay. So this is one in box, so $1,800.
Again, nope.
Well,
okay.
Nope.
We know where Phil's next check's going.
Right. Yeah. I'll go from the couch to the shed after that. As hot as it is outside, I'll be in really bad trouble. So, well, we're about done. Is there anything else that you guys have to add?
No, not really. At the end of the day, if it makes you happy and you can afford it, get whatever you want, mod whatever you want. For me, my aspiration, because I do want an arcade cabinet in my basement at one point. I have pretty decent carpentry skills. I want to build my own cab, and it'll probably be a MAME cabinet, and that'll be that. But if you like the 1-up stuff, if it makes you happy, go nuts.
I wish I'd have known 5 years ago what I know now. My dad was a pattern maker, and he had a shop. And I could have built the cabinet, but after he took ill, we had to sell the house and sell all of his gear. I didn't think, I wasn't really into it, 5 years ago, but now I am. But anyway,
and for me, like I said, I think some of the arcade cabinets, I like them for some of their uniqueness. Like I said, I really was drawn to the one, because again, I only own one. And again, that's the Pong cocktail / bar table one, and I like it. It was unique, and it was just like, I like the idea of having 4-player Warlords on it. The actual arcade game, and just a couple of having that more authentic feel, and with it, I mean, those ones are unique and they're cool if they're at the right price point. Personally, I struggle recommending them at their full retail price point. And but again, that's just me. But like Mike said, if it's because I've seen some people do some real cool setups with them. Like I said, building their own arcade, like true like arcades in their basement and stuff. And but you know, I'm with Mike. At some point I want to have an arcade cabinet, but I kind of want it to turn into like a father-son project where I'm building it myself and stuff, because I feel comfortable building it myself. I mean, maybe not cutting out all the pieces, but you can still buy the frames, you know, and do everything still within it. So
mine would be a custom, because I can't decide what legit cabinet to do. So I'm going to do a not real cabinet, and it's going to be a Last Starfighter cabinet.
Nice.
Well, you know, Alan
with
just
different
popped
controls, but
Yep.
Alan just popped on the chat, and we talked about this earlier about MAME. Really, if you're going to do it, the best way to do it is if you have a kind of a slightly older PC with an operating system and a hard drive. MAME is the best way to go.
Right.
As far as getting the power and the games on there, because if you have a Raspberry Pi, you are going to be limited to some of the newer games. Man, if the more powerful PCs, I mean, you can play PS2, PS3s on some PCs. So, you know, you can do that on these if you're so inclined to do that. I don't know if you'd want to do that on a Arcade1up cabinet, but you know, it is what it is. But anyway, appreciate you guys being here. And I do want to bring one thing up. There are different ways to mod these things, and our buddy CK, he said, he was telling me prior, we didn't have time to go over this. He wanted to tell us on the show, but he does mods for people with special needs, and there are actually people who like to play games with special needs. And so I appreciate CK modding these for people with special needs so that they can enjoy these games and play these games as well.
This comment here highlights that for sure.
I appreciate that, CK. Thank you so much. And so with that, I think that will do it. So next week, I don't know if we have a show. We have a show lined up, but we have a show. We don't know
what the
topic
what it
is yet.
Yeah.
But anyway, we will have a show next week, 8 o'clock. The Retro Bliss Rewind podcast, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So with that, you guys have an awesome day. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Bye, guys.